Hello everyone, we are back with Chapter 3, Applying Rational Numbers, and today we're focusing on Lesson 3, Dividing Decimals. Now to divide a decimal by a decimal, there's some steps. So the first step says make the divisor a whole number by moving the decimal point to the right. Now, when it talks about divisors, let's talk about division, okay? When we are dividing and there is a number here, let's say it is 4. This is called the divisor. Okay? Divisor. There we go. That looks more like the word divisor. And the number here on the inside, that is called the dividend. Okay, so those are the names. So what this says in step 1, make the divisor, so make this divisor a whole number by moving the decimal point to the right. Okay, so let's say if this was 4.1, let's just say, I'm just making this up. You would need to move this decimal to the right, so now it is 41 divided by, 24. Which leads us, so we moved it one place to the right. Then step 2, what that states is move the decimal point in the dividend the same number of places. So if we moved the decimal to the right one place in the divisor, we're going to have to do the same thing here in the dividend. We're going to move it one place. And if there is nothing there, that's where you put a 0. And so it becomes 240 divided by 41. Okay? So just to keep reading here. So remember to place the decimal in the quotient directly above the decimal point in the dividend. Okay, so then there's another word here. It says remember to place the decimal in the quotient. And the quotient, that is referring to the answer. So the answer is the quotient. And so what it's saying is, hey, this is 240 now. So the answer is the decimal in the answer, or the quotient, is going to be directly above where the decimal is here. Okay, so that's what that is referring to. And then you go to step 4 where you just divide. You just do the division. So the biggest thing is whenever you're dividing by a decimal, what I like to say is you can never divide by a decimal. So you have to change it so it's no longer a decimal. Okay, so let's look at this. We have 1.68 divided by 0.3, and so we're going to change that into our long division. We have 1.68 divided by 0.3, and the first rule dividing by decimals is that you can never divide by a decimal. So what we have to do is we have to change this from 0.3. We have to move it over one place, so it becomes 3. And then if we move it over one place in the divisor, we have to move it over the decimal one place in the dividend. So this decimal moves over one place to right there, and then it becomes 16.8. And then you just divide from there. So yeah. So this is just a little thought bubble that says the divisor 0.3 has one decimal place, so you move the decimal point one place to the right in both the divisor and the dividend, which is what we just did. So let's go ahead. We have now the problem turns into 16.8 divided by 3. So let's go ahead and just do that division and see what we end up with. So 3, we're going to go, does 3 go into 1? No, does not. It does not. So let's go look at 3. Does it go into 16? Yes, it does. How many times? Well, I'm going to say that it goes in 5 times because 5 times 3 is 15. Then we subtract. 6 take away 5 is 1. 1 take away 1 is 0. And then we're going to drop down this 8. And remember, wherever this decimal, you put it right up in the quotient or in the answer. So it's going to go right there. And then 3, does it go into 18? Yes, it does. How many times? 6 times. 6 times 3 is 18. And there is no remainder. So the answer to this problem is 5.6. All right. So that's how that works. Let's go ahead and do this number 1 together again. So we have 4.48, and that is divided by 5.6. So we're dividing decimals, and the first rule whenever you're dividing decimals is that you can never divide decimals. So we have to move the decimal place so we will no longer be dividing by decimals. So I'm going to move this over 1 place in the divisor, which means I have to move the decimal over 1 place in the dividend. So I'm just going to rewrite this problem. 56 divided by 44.8. And just know that decimal place is going to go directly above the decimal here. Okay? So we're looking at 56. Does 56 go into 4? No, it does not. Does 56 go into 44? No, it does not. Does 56 go into 448? Oh, yeah, I'm sure it does. We have to figure out how many times. So I would say that, 50 goes into 100 about 2 times. And so, 200, it would go in about 4 times. 300 would be 6. 400, it would be 8. So I want to go ahead and just figure out what 56 times 8 is, because I bet you it's probably 8. 6 times 8 is 48, and then 8 times 5 is 40 plus 4 would be 44. And look, it's exactly that. That's awesome. So we put the 8 right there, because 56 goes in there 8 times, and put a 0 here. And then we're just going to do this multiplication. 6 times 8 is 48. 8 times 5 is 40 plus 4 is 44. And there's no remainder, so that's our answer, 0.8. All right, awesome. That one really worked out. Okay, so now it is time for you to do 2, 3, and 4 on your own. I want you to go ahead and press pause. There's our little friend, the pause dragon, always reminding us to press pause. When you get done, press play, and then we'll go over the answers. All right, see you in a bit. See you in a bit. All right, we're back with number 2. We have 3.64 divided by 5.2. We're dividing decimals. And the one thing you always have to remember when you're dividing decimals is that you can never divide by decimals. So we have to get rid of the decimals. So we're going to move this over 1 place, move this over 1 place. And we actually end up with 52 divided by 36.4. And this decimal is just going to go directly above right there. Okay. Now, does 52 go into 3? No, it doesn't. Does 52 go into 36? No, it doesn't. Does 52 go into 364? I am sure it does. Let's go ahead and figure it out. So 52 is close to 50, so I'm going to think about 50 for a moment. 50 goes into 100 about 2 times. 50 goes into 200 4 times. 50 goes into 300 6 times. And this is like 64, so I bet you it probably goes in another time, so it'd probably be 7. So I want to just go ahead and figure out what 52 times 7 is. That's where I'm going to start. So 7 times 2 is 14, carry the 1. 7 times 5 is 35, plus 1 is 36. So 364, that's perfect. Okay, so it goes in 7 times, and when we multiply, 7 times 2 is 14. Carry the 1, 7 times 5 is 35, plus 1 is 36. So hopefully you got that one right. The answer is 0.7. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Ooh, this one's going to be fun. We have 36.45 divided by 0.09. And the first thing you have to remember, whenever you're doing this number, and this problem, you're dividing by decimals, is that you can never divide by decimals. So we're going to get rid of the decimals in the divisor. So we have to move this over 2 places, and then we moved it over 2 places in the divisor, so we have to move it over by 2 places in the dividend. And so we end up with 9 divided by 3,645. Okay, and that's where the decimal place ended up. So, all right, cool. Let's do it. Does 9 go into 3? No, it doesn't. Does 9 go into 36? Yes, it does. How many times? It goes in 4 times. 4 times 9 is 36. and then we subtract, and that is 0. We drop down the 4. Does 9 go into 4? No, it doesn't. So then we can just go ahead and drop down the 5. Does 9 go into 45? Yes, it does. How many times? It goes in, how many times? 5 times. 5 times 9 is 45. And then there's no remainder. There's nothing else to drop. So we did it. That's the answer right there. 405. Perfect. Okay, on to problem number 4. Let's see how you did with that one. Okay, so again, we can't divide by decimals. So we have to make this not a decimal. So we're going to move this over 1, 2 places, and we're going to move it over 2 places here, 1, 2. So now we are going 59 divided by 70.8. And we can just put that decimal right up there. Perfect. So, let me move this. Does 59 go into 7? No. Does 59 go into 70? Yes, 1 time. So we're going to do the multiplication. 1 times 59 is just 59. And then we subtract. I have to borrow, make that a 6. So we have 10 take away 9, which is 1. 6 take away 5, which is 1. Yeah. And this remainder is less than 59, so we know that we did it correct. So now we're going to go ahead and drop that 8 down. 59, how many times does it go into 118? I would say that it probably goes in 2 times. So let's go ahead and put 2. 2 times 9 is 8. Carry the 1. 2 times 5 is 10 plus 1 is 11. Hey, that's awesome. So no remainder, nothing else to drop, so we're done. The answer is 1.2. If you got that right, great job. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next page. The next page, what it says is sometimes it's necessary to write zeros in the dividend. Now remember, we're using this word dividend, and when we're talking about a division problem, this number here is the, this is the, let's say that's 4. Remember, that's the divisor. And this, if this was, I don't know, 24, this would be the dividend. And then the answer is called the quotient. Okay, so there we go. So let's read it again. Sometimes it's necessary to write zeros in the dividend. So it's saying, hey, sometimes it's necessary to write zeros there. So let's go ahead and see what they're referring to. So we have this problem, 6 divided by 0.25, okay, which is 0.25 divided by 6. And we can never divide by a decimal, okay? And I want to make sure that this is clear, all right? You can never do this. Okay, so we have to, this has to be changed, okay? However, you can do this. You can have 25 divided by 6.5. So it's okay for there to be a decimal there. That's okay. But it is not okay for there to be a decimal there. Okay, so this is not okay. Wait. This is okay now because it's not a decimal. So this is okay. So 25 is okay. But a decimal in the divisor is not okay. All right? And it's okay to have a decimal in the dividend. Okay? But you just can never have one right here outside. That's a big no. So, yeah. Okay, so let's move on. So we're looking at this problem, and we have 6 divided by 0.25. So 0.25, we can never divide by a decimal when it's right here. So that means we're going to have to move it over 2 places like that, right? But what happens is when we move it over 2 places, there is nothing there. So when there's nothing there, what you can do is you can add in the zeros, which is what they did here. So we moved it over 2 places, and then just put zeros in there. So then it became 600 divided by 25, okay? So the divisor 0.25 has 2 decimal places. In order to move the decimal point 2 places to the right, in the divisor and the dividend, you need to write 2 zeros in the dividend like we did. Okay, so let's go ahead and work this problem out and see what the answer is. So 25, does it go into 6? No, it doesn't. 25, does it go into 60? Yes, it does. I would say it goes in 2 times because I know that if you have 2 25, I always like to think of 25 as like a quarter, like change. If you have 2 of those, it's equal to 50 cents. So I know it's equal to 50. So I know it goes in 2. So then we go 2 times 25, which is 50. We subtract. That's 0. 6 take away 5 is 1. And this remainder is less than the 25. So we know that we did this number correctly. And so then we got to drop down this 0. And then how many times does 25 go into 100? Well, if I'm going to think about 25 as a quarter, I know that there's, and like 100 is like $1. There's 4 quarters in $1. That means 25 goes into 100 4 times. And then we just do the math. 4 times 5 is 20. Write the 0, carry the 2. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 2 is 10, and there's no remainder. So the answer to this problem is 24. Perfect. Okay, so let's go ahead and do 5 together. So yeah, we have a 7 divided by 0.35. This is a decimal, and we can't divide this by a decimal, so we need to change it. So we're going to move it over 1, 2 places. And here, even though there's no decimal, the decimal is right after the 7. And if we move it over 2 places in the divisor, we need to move it over 2 places in the dividend. And then we just put zeros in there. Okay? So now what we're doing is we're doing 35 divided by 700. Okay? And yeah, we're just going to go for it. So 35, does it go into 7? No. Does it go into 70? I think so. I think it goes in 2 times. So let's do the multiplication. 2 times 5 is 10. Write the 0, carry the 1. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Hey, all right, that was perfect. We subtract, and there's no remainder. And then, but there's still a 0 up here, so we have to drop it down. And 35 does not go into 0, so we put a 0 there, and we are to the end. So the answer is 20. So boom, there we go. Now it is time for you to embark on a mathematical journey of problems 6, 7, and 8. So I want you to go ahead and pause when you try number 6, 7, and 8. And then when you get done, press play, and we'll see you in a little bit. All right, see you in a little bit. Okay, we're back and we're ready to tackle problem number 6. So we have 8 divided by 1.6. So there's a decimal. We got to get rid of it. So we got to move it over 1 place. And if we move it over 1 place in the divisor, we got to move it over 1 place in the dividend. And we got to put a 0 there. So this ends up being 16 divided by 80. Now, does 16, and then we just do the division. Does 16 go into 8? No, it doesn't. Does 16 go into 80? I think it does. I'm not exactly sure how many times, but I'm just going to take a stab in the dark and think that maybe it goes in 5 times. So I'm going to do the multiplication, 16 times 5, and see what that is. 5 times 6 is 30. Write the 0, carry the 3. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 3 is 80. Hey, so it's exactly there. One way that you can kind of estimate 16 would round to 20. 20 goes into 84 times, but 16 is like 4 less than 20. So that's why I thought that maybe I should try 5 and bump it up to 5. And I was right. So you put the 5 there, and then do the multiplication. 5 times 6 is 30. Carry the 3. Write the 0, carry the 3. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 3 is 8. And then there we go. The answer is 5. That's awesome. Hopefully you got that one right. All right, if you did, great job. Let's move on to 7. We have 19.2 divided by 0.12. We got to get rid of this decimal, so we're going to move it over 2 places. If we move it over 2 places here, we got to move it over 2 places here. That's 1 and 2. There's nothing here, so we have to put a 0. So now what we're doing is 1,920 divided by 12. Okay, cool. Does 12 go into 1? No. Does 12 go into 19? Yes, it does 1 time. We do the multiplication. 1 times 12 is 12. And then we subtract. 9 take away 2 is 7. 1 take away 1 is 0. We drop down this 2. Oh, man. 12, how many times does it go into 72? I would guess, I know that 12 times 5 is 60. So I'm going to guess that it would probably be 6 times. Let's go ahead and figure that out. 12 times 6. 6 times 2 is 12. Right, the 2 carry the 1. 6 times 1 is 6 plus 1 is 7. So yeah, 72. That's perfect. So 12 goes into 72 as 6 times. 6 times 2 is 12. Carry the 1. 6 times 1 is 6 plus 1 is 7. And then we subtract. There's no remainder, but there's a 0 here, so we have to drop down that 0. And does 12 go into 0? No, it doesn't, so we write a 0 there. And yeah, that's it. We have 0 times 12 is 0, and there's no remainder, and we're done. The answer is 160. So if you got that one right, woohoo! Okay, on to problem 8. This is 48 divided by 1.25. So we have to get rid of this decimal. We're going to move it over 2 places, and we have to do it here too. 1, 2, there's nothing there, so we have to add zeros. So this is actually going to end up being 125, and so it's going to be 4,800 divided by 125. Okay, let's do this. So the first thing we want to know is, can 125 go into 4? No. Can 125 go into 48? No. Can 125 go into 480? Yes. How many times? Maybe 3? I don't know. I'm guessing. Let's go ahead and go 125 times 3 and see. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 2, so write the 5, carry the 1. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7, and 3 times 1 is 3. So 375. Huh. Well, maybe it can go in 4 times. Let's try 125 times 4. Okay, 4 times 5 is 20. Write the 0, carry the 2. 4 times 2 is 8. Plus 2 would be 10. Write the 0, carry the 1. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. Okay, so that's too big. So we know it has to be 3. Okay, so 3, yeah, 500 is too big. It's bigger than 480, so it goes in 3 times. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. 3 times 1 is 3. Then we subtract. We have to borrow. That becomes a 7. 10 take away 5 is 5. 7 take away 7 is 0. And 4 take away 3 is 1. And 105 is less than 125, so we know that we did that correctly. So now we need to drop this 0. Oh, man. 1,050. How many times does 125 go into that? I really don't know. You know, it's going to be a lot. I know, I don't know. My guess would be like 9 or 8. I think I'll try 8. So let's try that. Let's go 125 times 8. And the reason really why I'm trying 125 times 8 besides 125 times 9 is I know that 9 times 5 is going to end up with 45, and 8 times 5 is going to be a 40. And the answer ends in a 0, and if it goes in evenly, you know what I mean, whatever this is has to end in a 0. So that's really why I'm choosing going in 8 times versus 9 times. So I don't know, I'm just going to try that one. I know it's one of these bigger numbers, so let's start here. 8 times 5 is 40. I'm going to write the 0, carry the 4. 8 times 2 is 16, plus 4 is 16. 16 plus 4 would be 20. Write the 0, carry the 2. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 2 is 10. So 1,000. Yeah. Okay, so that's 1,000. That's really, really close. So that's great. I'm going to do the subtraction. 0, that's 5, that's 0, and that's 0. So the, I shouldn't have wrote that one. That one shouldn't be there. So it's 50, which is less than 125, so we know we did it correctly. Okay, so we still have a remainder, and we're out of 0, so that means we need to add another 0. So I'm going to add the decimal place here. Hold on a second. Did I? Oh, I didn't write the 8, so this goes in 8 times. There we go. Okay, yeah. 125 goes into 1,058 times. I forgot to write the 8. Okay, so that's how it is. The decimal goes above. We still have a remainder, so we're going to add a 0 and drop it down, and we have 500. And we already figured this out. 125 times 4 is 500. So we know that 125 goes into 500 4 times, and 4 times 125 is 500, and we subtract, and there's no remainder. So there you go. There's the answer. If you got that right, great job. Awesome work. And I will see you next time. All right. Goodbye. Goodbye.